Sorry for the delay, everyone, but welcome to the Sarcasm Liberty live stream. Tonight, we're going to be talking about libertarian-themed movies. Joining us tonight for the first time is Joe, which is Liberty in Cinema.
How's it going, everyone?
Joe, if you want to really quick plug your Twitter and just give a quick introduction for all of you.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, my Twitter is Liberty in Cinema. It's kind of just exactly what you'd think it was. I kind of post a lot of movie quotes that have to do with Liberty, some Liberty movie-based memes, just stuff like that, and whatever else I feel like talking about.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So tonight like I said, we're going to be discussing some libertarian kind of themed movies. I have at least two I want to talk about. I'm hoping everybody brought at least one with them that they'd want to bring up. So what I kind of figure is, we'll kind of go from person to person. Everybody can bring up at least one. We'll go into a discussion about like what the themes are, liberty themes and such. So Joe, if you want to kick it off, do you have a particular movie that comes to mind?
Yeah, sure. I actually watched a few things before, since you asked me to do this, and I guess we can start off with something a little older film here, but I think it's really much has a lot of liberty themes. So we got Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which is from 1939.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So
has anybody else seen Mr. Smith?
Yeah, it's been forever. But
no,
I have not.
I have not.
Okay. Well, Joe, do you want to give everybody just kind of?
Yeah, sure. So quick overview of it is, so basically there's this senator in a state who dies, and so the governor has to choose a replacement. And there's kind of this big corporatist guy who says, I want one of my lackeys, but the people want some kind of reformer. And so the governor eventually kind of just goes with like the head of the Boy Scouts who his sons really like. And he figures, oh, this guy's going to be naive enough, so he'll kind of go along with anything. And he goes there and to the Senate, and the press just kind of make a fool of him. They kind of mock him. And then he kind of gets into the middle. They tell him to pass some bill just to keep him busy. And so what he does is he's just, okay, I want to buy some land to start a camp for Boy Scouts. But it turns out the corporatist boss wants the same land to build a dam for just some money-making scheme. And so the whole thing is kind of the corporatist boss and the other senator from his state kind of are working together to kind of undermine him. They start some kind of conspiracy that it's actually Senator Smith who wants the land to make money. And there's this big whole thing, and it kind of ends with this big 25-hour filibuster.
Keep it going, guys. I'll be back in a minute. Sorry.
Yeah. So I guess we can start this off with I have a quote here from Alvin Barkley, who was the Senate Majority Leader at the time the movie was released. And he said the film was, quote, silly and stupid, and it makes the Senate look like a bunch of crooks.
Accurate. Can't get more real than that, man.
Sounds like an accurate representation to me.
Yep, and another quote he said was, it showed the Senate as the biggest aggregation of nincompoops on record.
Can't argue with that one. Yet again. Yeah, I got to put that one on the list.
Yeah, it was a good one.
All right. So I guess next person, Eric, you got one to bring up? Amos?
Huh? I just couldn't help it but think, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, my all-time favorite movie trilogy is Back to the Future, and the fact that Doc Brown is like, he's kind of anti-state, I think. I mean, he stole uranium and used it to time travel. No, plutonium. There we go, plutonium.
Yep.
To time travel. And from a bunch of, basically from a corrupt state, at least.
It was Libyans, I think.
Yeah, Libyans. He tricked
and
Libyans.
also in the second one, in the alternate future, it turns out that he gets arrested for conspiracy bullshit.
Yeah,
That's right. They say he's crazy.
Mm.
I mean, you kind of see Biff becomes like. I mean, as much as people want to compare Biff to Trump, it's just. I just see Biff.
He has his own Trump power. I mean, it's kind of hard not to make.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere once that they actually did base that off of Donald Trump, but that's back when he was just like kind of a real estate guy.
I heard that was all. It seemed to come across as sort of an after the fact. Like, it's so popular now to hate Trump, so let me just jump on this bandwagon and say I totally created Biff with Trump in mind. It's like,
but I remember reading about that like even before Trump became political.
But the interesting thing about Biff is like just his demeanor was authoritative. The way he came up was actually kind of libertarian because like he went back as an old man to give his younger self a book from the future. He made bets.
That's pretty capitalistic.
Yeah, he did everything. He was literally 40 years ahead of himself, literally. And it's like, obviously he's a bully. He tries to shoot Marty. He ends up coming out that he killed his father and all that. So obviously all that kind of authoritative stuff. But the way he came up in the world was completely libertarian. If anyone has any arguments against that.
I mean, I don't really have any arguments against.
I mean, no one really looked into. They didn't really go into the movie what his political ties were.
True.
I mean, the whole neighborhood that he was in was completely screwed over.
Wasn't he like mayor or something, or he was running for mayor?
No, he just screwed over the whole neighborhood of what was that town called again?
Hill Valley.
Hill Valley. All of Hill Valley turned into like an inner city wasteland. Yeah.
Yeah, because when Marty went back, he it was basically like he was going back to the hood in his old neighborhood.
Yep. Yeah, the gym teacher jumps him with a shotgun on his front porch.
Yes.
Yep. Slackers.
Well, it turned into Ancapistan.
We're doing
so accurate it hurts. So accurate it hurts.
I think we can't really do a live stream talking about libertarian themed movies if we don't talk about Ghostbusters.
Yep.
The good one, not 2016.
Oh.
Can we all just agree that everybody should stop remaking classic movies? Like, just stop. I don't care what you're doing.
It makes
They're
sense.
classics. Leave them alone.
I mean,
we just talked about Back to the Future. I remember Robert Zemeckis said no one's remaking that until he's dead.
Yeah. Well, here's a problem I have.
Wait.
I'll go on that real quick. It doesn't make sense to remake a good movie.
Right.
It's already good. Why would you remake it?
Actually, real quick before you get into Ghostbusters, I just want to share a little story. I was actually cast as an extra for the new Ghostbusters movie, but I ended up not showing up to the casting thing, and I'm so glad that I did not. But yeah, go ahead.
The Pirate Ghost.
I mean, there are some movies you can remake that.
Right. Just not the classics.
But here's the thing about remaking bad movies. People might not want to go see them because the previous one has like a bad reputation.
Oh, I understand I understand
movies.
the IP argument. I understand remaking it to like bring it back around to a new generation. I get why they do it. I just think you should stop doing it. Like, I think it should.
I mean, any of the new Star Trek movies.
Ooh. Okay, so
that's the franchise a little different.
The franchise is classic. the movies, especially the first, like not 1, 2, and 3, but 4, 5, and 6 are awful.
I actually really like 6, but that was my very first Star Trek movie.
And you're not remaking them exactly because they did the nice fun thing where it's like, oh, look, alternate reality, new storyline altogether. Yeah. We can play on old things, but we don't have to stick to the old storyline.
Throw in some lens flares.
That's slightly different than remaking the whole damn thing.
There's a documentary I watched, and it was Gene Roddenberry's son, and he was going around talking to fans and stuff, and he actually interviewed J.J. Abrams. And he brought this old interview of his dad, and his dad actually was talking about how he was totally in favor of, in later years after he was dead and gone, of like a whole new generation picking up Star Trek and like updating it and making it for like a new generation. Like, I think he would actually have been in favor of the newer movies, whether he would have liked them or not. I think it was something he actually wanted to happen. I wish I could remember the name of the documentary, but like, here's the thing. The handful of really good remakes that there are, like The Fly, The Thing, Scarface, most people don't even know that they're remakes. So I really don't like I get
it's really something that has to be taken on a movie by movie basis. You can't really just generalize it.
I think King Kong is one of those examples where it's not, they're minus Skull Island, they're like the 3 main Kong movies were each like they were remade, but they were kind of updated for effects. Like the original used
stop motion.
Yeah, stop
motion. There was the guy in the suit and motion capture.
The 70s was the suitmation, and then Peter Jackson's was motion capture.
My point still stands. None of those are classics.
King Kong? Fuck off, Eric. That's like one of my favorite movies. No, actually, I took my daughter to see Skull Island. I'm like, she loves King Kong, and we watched the original, the black and white one. And like, you wouldn't think like a 7-year-old girl would be like that captivated by an old black and white movie like that, but she was just so into it. She loves that King Kong. All right, let's talk Ghostbusters.
No accounting for taste.
I'm gonna get you, Eric, somehow. All right.
Sorry, I've been drinking.
Let's talk Ghostbusters.
Be a little bit mouthy tonight.
It's fine. I had it coming. I told you we couldn't be friends earlier today.
You did. You did. I don't remember why, but you did.
I don't remember why either. I don't know. I was bored and I said it.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So yeah, Ghostbusters. I was actually, one of my friends was over here earlier today, and he's a big Ghostbusters fan, and I was talking about that the libertarian theme, and I explained to him like the whole, it's people going into the private sector, building their own business from the ground up, becoming very successful, and then the bad guy in the story is the government agent that comes in and says, no, you have to follow our rules the way we wanted you to do things, and then he fucks everything up for the entire city. So that's if you look up like libertarian movies, that pops up on a lot of lists. I think it's a very good one to bring up. I don't think it was intended to be that way, like have that message or that theme to it. It just kind of turned out that way.
I mean, movies that depicted government workers as the bad guy were a little bit more. As you go back, they became more and more normal.
Yeah,
it was a huge theme in the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm. I mean, right now, just to throw out a movie that is totally not libertarian, but just to show how they portray the U.S. government and the military as in a good light, is like Transformers or something.
Yeah, everything Michael Bay.
Michael Bay.
Everything
like the military.
Yeah, the government, the military, explosions.
They definitely give him some money for those movies.
And to run on the theme of the private sector thing, I want to mention this one, Ace Ventura.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that before.
Yeah, Ace Ventura, completely, self-made businessman, a little weird, and even though the bad guy isn't really the government, it's Ray Finkel, the crazy football player. The whole time the cops are getting in his way of his investigation. So you kind of see that battle of the private sector and the public sector throughout the whole movie. My favorite part's when he goes in and just completely diagnoses the murder scene better than all the cops, and he's just some kook that lives in an apartment and runs a pet agency.
And I haven't seen that movie since I was 7, so I have nothing to say about that.
Rewatch it. And to go on to the Libertarian failures, I think we can count this one. I know we don't like to bring it up, but Jurassic Park, completely privately owned island, everything goes wrong. Maybe we do need government.
Well, except that he had state approval for most of that stuff, right? Like, he'd gotten all the permits. Like, the whole point of the first movie is they're having scientists come in to, like, sign off on the whole park and everything else. They're, like, trying to get one more sign off.
If you actually read the book, too, the government does become the bad guy. Because at the end of the book, like, Grant and the kids and stuff, they're, like, indefinitely detained by the government.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how the book ends. They're being detained and they have no idea when they're going to get to go home or anything like that because the government's like, this thing happened and we can't let you leave now. Yeah, it's like a total cliffhanger.
And then it's never resolved in the second book.
Yeah, and the second book isn't that great, to be honest.
Now,
let's be honest, the second movie isn't that good either.
Yeah.
What about movies that I'm thinking of other movies that portray the state in a very positive light? Deep Impact, Armageddon.
Armageddon's Michael Bay.
But I'm just saying it's always like the government scientists that like the government just pulls together the greatest scientists and these like ragtag team of guys to train them in like a week or whatever to like go to space and blow up a meteor.
I could probably
except who do they recruit for those? Yeah. Who do they recruit for those missions? Not guys in NASA. Private citizens, both of those movies.
Yeah,
they go hire the guys.
The only thing I like about Armageddon is the big thing that they wanted, all the guys wanted, was to never pay taxes again. I thought that was pretty funny. But I could probably go on for a full hour alone about how Armageddon is like the worst movie ever made. I fucking hate it.
What about The Core?
I've never watched that.
It's worse than Armageddon.
Is it?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
I remember seeing advertisements when it came out.
Basically, basically the government. Do you want me to spoil it?
Sure, go for it.
I'm never going to watch it. Go for it
forever.
So the government was created some sort of a seismic device to, like, that they drilled to the core of the Earth, and they shot this sonic whatever. Anyways, they shot something at the core of the Earth, which caused the core of the Earth to stop spinning, which caused our electrical field our magnetic field that protects us from the sun to disappear. So then, instead of telling these guys that that's the government did it in the first place, they sent a ship that was created by mainly private citizens, I guess. That's like the only half decent part, to go down and restart the core of the Earth with nukes. Basically blow it up in a pattern so a wave would form in the core to cause it to spin again. And then at the very end they found out, like, oh, we have a plan B. There's this thing we shot at the Earth, and we probably started this whole thing to begin with, because the core of the Earth doesn't just stop spinning. The government did it.
That does sound really bad.
Yeah.
I do want to say, though, about like Armageddon, because they did bring in private citizens, but they still sent them up there with like military people. And
who's the bad guys?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna blow up the meteor away. Everybody's still on it, even though we might be able to get away without it.
Yeah. And because then Bruce Willis
military guys only want to blow things up. All we got to do. Oh, we have a nuke. Let's use it.
Yeah. Now, I like the actors in that movie. Like, a lot of them, I really, really enjoy them. But it was just such a stupid movie.
Yeah.
I can't think of the guy's name. He was in like Prison Break, and he was in The Dark Knight for a little bit. Fuck, I can't remember the guy's name now. But he was one of the military guys. It was just like the stupidest line. Like, they have this gun on the ship, I think it was, or something for some reason. There was a gun on the ship, and the guy, like, one of the guys just goes crazy and starts shooting things. And then there's this stupidest line ever. He's like, he's got space madness. And I was just like, every time I heard that line, I was just like, that is so fucking stupid. Like, who the fuck is space madness? It was just, All right, I got way off track, but yeah.
Yeah.
Also, 300 is a terrible movie. Anyway.
So I
say that again.
300, the Zack Snyder movie. I hate
You're
that.
Out
movie.
of your mind. It's the only Zack Snyder movie that's ever been any good ever, except for Watchmen.
No, Watchmen wasn't even that good. Dawn of the Dead was his best movie. That was actually a really good remake.
We so can't be friends. You were so
you guys
right
in like half of Justice League?
300.
Half
if you took all the slow-mo parts and you played them in regular speed, the movie would be like 5 minutes long. It's just... It's so... I don't know. I just like... Zack Snyder can make a really pretty-looking movie, but they're just full of nonsense. And I just have
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying with all the slow-mo.
Yeah.
But as I was saying... I had distrust for the government at a very young age, and it was because of one particular movie.
Yes,
that movie was E.T.
Yeah.
You know,
it was so bad.
That's right.
That they had to.
This poor lonely kid finds E.T. You know, he finally has a friend, and you know, they have some kind of synchronicity going on where, I don't know, they're connected in some way. I don't know how to explain it. Then all of a sudden the government comes and like, oh, here's an alien. We gotta experiment him and find out what he's all about. Meanwhile, they're completely screwing up this alien, and consequently screwing up this poor kid who's like somehow intertwined with them. And it's like, man, the government sucks.
Yeah, they're chasing after them with all their fully loaded walkie-talkies in the special edition.
Is that actually a thing?
Yeah, no, that's a real thing. I mean,
George Lucas convinced Spielberg to do it.
Like, it's such like, there's like no violence in the movie at all. Like, the government comes and like, they strap E.T. down, start doing experiments on him, and then they start almost dying. And I don't even think they actually shoot a shot. The kids just drive off on their bikes, and then they.
Well, if they actually shot, they couldn't replace the guns with walkie-talkies.
Right.
Right. So what's the point? It's like they have guns on. Like, the world's gone mad.
I know we're talking about movies, but South Park has done such a great job of just raking George Lucas and Steven Spielberg over the coals for all the modifications they did to the movies that we all grew up on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, those guys are libertarians.
Yeah. Well,
we did a whole stream on South Park.
They were like, no, they're raping them.
They're raping Indiana Jones. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's just brilliant. And like, they've done such a great job of just like, fuck you for messing with all of the stuff that we grew up on. We love the stuff the way it is. We liked it the way it is. You guys are basically billionaires because we like what you did originally. Leave it the F alone. By the way, that goes back to my point of stop remaking classic movies, you fuckheads.
Yeah. They brought up a good point too, though.
Star
like
Wars
Lucas
never really
himself.
made a remake, though. Like, they just kind of went back and then they went forward. And they went to the side.
They came out with a special edition in the late 90s. No.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's changing art,
George
basically.
Lucas.
And they actually brought up the point that Lucas at one point, like he testified in front of Congress, I believe, against the colorization of black and white films. And
right. I think they bring that up in the South Park episode.
His own films.
Have you ever seen The People versus George Lucas?
I've not seen it. I saw Red Letter Media's interview where they talked to the guy who made the documentary, but
it's a great movie. I mean, George Lucas is the same kind of bastard as Alan Greenspan, where it's like Alan Greenspan's like, oh, gold, 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 objectivism, gold, 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 and then he becomes chairman of the Federal Reserve, and he's like, oh, print, bubbles, print, 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 and then he isn't the chairman of the Fed anymore. He's like, oh, gold, 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 objectivism, gold, 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 gold. And it's like, you are a horrible bastard. By the way, George Lucas is in that same category.
Yeah. No, I actually still maintain George Lucas had very little to actually do with the success of Star Wars.
Zero. If it had been up to George Lucas, it would have never gone past the first movie.
Watch Red Letter Media's the Mr. Plinkett review of what was the name? The first episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Mm-hmm. He talks about just in depth about how, like, you know, A New Hope was saved in editing. Like, it was a terrible movie. If it wasn't for the editors, it would have been a failure.
Well, they also weren't able to do the things he wanted to do, which is why they made the special edition later. And he got so sick of not being able to do the things he wanted to do after A New Hope that he basically like gave away the rest of the script to the other directors. He was like, yeah, screw it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. Yeah. And that's what, I mean, most people go, well, Empire Strikes Back is one of the best movies ever, and it's definitely the best of the trilogy. Yeah. And so, that's what most people argue, and it's like, yeah, because Lucas had basically nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. He had the least to do with it, and like, it's just, it's funny because
you want to talk about Incapistan, man.
Yeah.
God, what I would not give to live in that universe.
But like
Tatooine.
I would live on Tatooine to live in that universe.
Yeah, they don't take no federal credits.
But like he talks about the opening shot in A New Hope where like shows the rebel ship and then it shows this giant Star Destroyer, and he talks about how like in this one shot without any dialogue it shows how small the Rebel Alliance is compared to the Empire, and like he goes into depth about it. And then he's like, this shot is so wonderfully and masterfully done that I believe George Lucas probably actively fought against it being in the movie. Yeah. No, like look at Red Letter Media and his review of Phantom Menace is 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Damn.
Yes. And he does the other prequels
to go through like, all the Trade Federation stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's be super clear about this. I'm such a Star Wars nerd. I convinced my parents to camp out for tickets when Phantom Menace came out. I was 11. We camped out for tickets for midnight showing for the first showing of the whole thing, right? And this is in Houston, and some dude had won a contest for the radio station, and they had legally changed his name to Obi-Wan Kenobi because of the new movies. He was in line with us.
Wow.
Should have changed his name to Jar Jar Binks.
Well, nobody knew Jar Jar Binks was coming, so that's part of it. So we're in line, and at 11 years old, I took all comers at Star Wars Trilogy in the line. Somebody had brought a board with a Star Wars trivia. Like, somebody had brought a board, and I beat everybody, including people who had seen the original trilogy in the movie theaters. And obviously, I'm not old enough to have done that. So I'm a gigantic Star Wars nerd. Like, to the point where I saw Episode 1 like 4 times in theaters before I was like, holy crap, this thing really is not that good.
Yeah. Can we just take a moment of remembrance when we didn't know who Jar Jar Binks was? Good times.
I mean, the poor bastard is the reason the Empire exists. So on some levels, you've got to just feel for the guy, but God,
shouldn't have made him a senator.
Oh, I know, right? Oh yeah, you're a heroic general because you stumbled and tripped and whoop-de-doo. And while we're at it, we're gonna make you a representative from Naboo. Gee, that seems like a good idea. Who can I think of that's in the actual House of Representatives that won basically as a concession? Oh yeah, like a dozen people.
Yeah. And in the whole movie, it's he's just a comedy of errors throughout the whole thing. So it's I don't know who in their right mind decided that he should be a senator.
Well, I will say,
voted for him.
Oh, they don't vote for him; they're appointed.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Star Wars nerd. They're right there. Big, giant, flaming, like, woohoo, Star Wars nerd.
Real quick, this is from the Mr. Plinkett review.
I don't know who I am anymore. Fuck me.
Hold on. That's just some random shit.
Star Wars The Phantom Menace was the most disappointing thing since my son. Why is it so bad, you ask? Well, it'll take a little while to explain because basically the answer involves every single thing in the film.
That's funny.
I'm here.
Yeah. It's great because it's just it's so bizarre. Like there's at one point where he's just talking about like the Star Wars toys. And he's like, hold on, I gotta go like change my camera. And then it's in this like really like disgusting looking basement. And there's just Star Wars toys scattered around that he says his grandkids left. And there's like piles of bones and stuff. And he's just casually scanning the room. And then there's this lady tied up. And he just like pans past her and he starts talking about like some other Star Wars toy. And then she's like, mister, can you help me out? And he's like, I said, shut the fuck up. I do my Star Wars review. It just goes right back. Like as if
that's hilarious.
And as that movie was, what was it? Darth Maul was the most badass Star Wars villain of them all. Like as far as looks and like double-edged lightsaber, like they just completely wasted that character on that one crappy movie.
Well, no, if you're a nerd, you know that's not true. But if you've only seen the movies, yes, you're correct. That is completely true.
All right. Expand on this then, Mr. Nerd.
So he doesn't die. He gets cut in half and he falls to the bottom of whatever that chute is, and he doesn't die. The power of the dark side keeps him alive.
Clone Wars or something?
It's part of the Clone Wars animated series, and it's part of a number of books afterwards. Yeah, but he doesn't die. Yeah. He ends up with a mechanical lower half, and his like half brother becomes a Sith Lord also, and they like try to kill Darth Sidious, who is Emperor Palpatine. Like, here's the thing about Star Wars: the movies are great. The original trilogy is amazing. The second trilogy, if you read the books that were written in between the three movies that kind of tie everything together, are actually not as bad as they seem if you only watch the movies. The rest of the extended universe, the rest of what used to be kind of just the books and everything else that went along with that used to be canon, is amazing. Like that's what I grew up on. I had at one point like $3,500 worth of Star Wars books.
Oh wow!
By the time before I was 12.
I only ever read Shadows of the Empire, and I actually thought that was a really good.
So Shadows of the Empire is great, but there's literally
I read the Han Solo one.
There's literally hundreds of books.
Yeah, I've read the
gigantic expanded universe, and so that part of it's really fantastic. And Lucas had nothing to do with that. The smartest thing Lucas ever did was he turned over licensing rights to the storyline to Kathleen Kennedy, who runs Lucasfilm for Disney now, and she's done an awful job after Disney bought it. And I don't think it's her fault. I think it's Disney, because Disney's done the same thing to all kinds of stuff that they've ever touched. But the book part of it, they basically let the best sci-fi authors in the world have at it. Just write something, write an awesome, so like Timothy Zahn and James Luciferiano and all sorts of other people, Michael Stackpole and a bunch of other people have written really fantastic series of books in that universe. And so I grew up on the books more so even than the movies, because there weren't new movies coming out when I was a kid. Episode 1 came out when I was 11, and I was born in 1987, so the original trilogy had been out before I was ever born. And so I grew up on the books, and the books are, and this holds true for every movie ever, right? Like, the books are way better than the movie, because you can do things in written format that you can't do in a movie. Like, you can do things in a book or a trilogy of books that you could never do in a movie if you wanted to. Like the closest thing that anybody's ever come close to, like, oh, let's get it right to the books, is Game of Thrones. And it's taken them 8 seasons to do 6 books because the 7th and 8th book haven't come out yet. Yeah. And like, even then they've cut so much out of the TV series, and they've had, 10 hours a season or 11 hours per season. And they've done 7 and now almost 8 seasons of stuff to get across those books that are, the average book size in Game of Thrones is 1,000 pages. Like you can't do You can't do that on film. It's just not practical.
Yeah.
And so if you grew up on the books like I did, you look at like the newer trilogy, and even I'm with Scott Horton, right? Like episode 8 is the most steaming pile of dog shit ever. So like, gross. But like, Rebel 1 was amazing, right? Or Rogue One, or whatever the fuck they called that movie. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Because they took like actual footage from episode 4 and plugged it in and went, here's the like immediately preceding the storyline of episode 4, and it was amazing. And so anything George Lucas has touched, even though I know it's hit, like, I don't know what the fuck went wrong in that guy's head, because American Graffiti is super libertarian, right? It's like, we just want to ride the drag and like fuck the man and ride our cars, and we want to modify our cars. Who gives a crap how they came out of the factory? And like, then he makes Star Wars, and it's this like libertarian space opera, and like everything's amazing. And then something happened to that dude. He made a ton of money and sold the fuck out.
Oh yeah. Real quick, this is from another one of those Mr. Plinkett reviews. This is about episode 2.
Oh, good. Which is
wrong. So I didn't even know where to start. The only way to really describe it was to imagine that someone has dumped out 5 separate puzzles into a pile on the floor, mixed them up 1 hour. Stuff you into an old fridge filled with flesh-eating cockroaches. 59 minutes.
I don't know. I absolutely love those reviews. They're amazing.
Wow, that's bad.
I think Star Wars really sticks out about how libertarian Han Solo is.
Well, it's not just Han Solo, right? It's anybody that's not part of the Empire. Like literally,
it doesn't. And
you don't have to be.
Han Solo brings it to a new level, because he's the outlaw. He's a smuggler. He has like kind of like a dirty, shaky past. But
do we dare call him an agorist?
Yes, exactly. Because I when you were talking about the books, I remember when the books were really big, and I'm not really the type to really read movie books. I like either reading history or philosophy books. But the one book that I did pick up was the Han Solo trilogy, and holy shit, so badass.
Yeah, so there's 6 books that were written about Solo separately, and then he's got a trilogy that's him and Lando Calrissian, and then Lando's got a set of books that are about him also. And those 12 books are amazing, because it's because Han and Lando are obviously like the smuggler and the gambler and like the free marketeers, and the books are all about their exploits as like hardcore black market free marketeer anarchists. Like it's
actually, since you bring up Lando, I wanted to address something. Because like the new Star Wars, like they kind of address like the whole like, oh, we're gonna have a black lead and everything, and people were saying that there wasn't really that good of black representation in the old movies, and I was looking back at it one time, and you have Lando Calrissian, and he's in charge of a whole city. Like he's the guy,
so understand, he's not just in charge of the whole city. He owns the mining operations that control that city on an inhospitable gas giant that he won in a card game, and he's making a go of it. Awesome. He's not just like the mayor of the city; he owns the place. And then he becomes a general in the Rebel Alliance, like one of the top 4 generals in the entire rebellion. Like, give me a break. Not enough black representation. It's like the whole point of Star Wars and Star Trek is black, white, purple, red, green, fish, elephant. Who gives a crap?
And then you got all these weird ass species too. And like
Admiral Akbar is a fish.
The thing is, when I look back at the movies, I saw 3 black characters throughout the whole first couple of movies that really noticed, and that was Calrissian, Mace Windu, who was actually the leader of the Jedi Council, if I remember correctly, in the movie.
Him and Yoda.
And there was one black guy who was like in one of the fighter jet scenes, and he was a squad leader. So I'm like, 3 black guys, and they're all leaders. Like, what the hell is everyone talking about?
Then
there's not 57.
The Jedi had the first Jew in Star Wars, that little cackling puppet in Jabba's palace. No, sorry, I stole that from somebody else. But I always found it funny. Now, one of the things that I like, because you mentioned Star Trek, I was rewatching the original series recently,
which is the least libertarian science fiction ever.
But it had a lot of really good stuff in there. Like one of the things I really liked was there was this episode where, like, I don't know, they came up with some ridiculous stuff, but Abraham Lincoln is on the Enterprise and he's like walking around talking to people, and then he sees Uhura, and he calls her a negress, and then he apologizes, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then she's like, "Well, why would I be offended by that? Like, we don't really see each other that way. Like, we're not looking at each other by color. So you saying something like identifying me by my color doesn't really mean anything to me. I don't find it derogatory." And I always thought stuff like that was really interesting.
Yeah, for all of Gene Roddenberry's faults, there was plenty of like good human values to be found in Star Trek.
Yeah.
But I mean, the guy was a out and out globalist, socialist, like one world government guy, like, and it shows in his writings and in his TV shows. And like, it's
funny because you'll see people go back and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, Star Trek was like the ideal like socialist society." I'm like, yeah,
George Takei says that
because
not wrong.
They could just make food out of nothing. Like, of course,
no scarcity.
They've solved like world hunger. They've solved all these energy crisis problems. There's nothing else to worry about. Yeah, it's a lot easier to kind of come together like that as a society.
Nothing else to worry about that.
Movies, and that's it.
If you still think that that's actually true, do me a favor and go back and watch Deep Space Nine.
Oh, okay. Because nothing
Deep
else
Space
to worry
Nine
about on Earth.
All of the line. No. Even on Earth.
All right,
Deep Space Nine.
It's been a long time since I watched Deep Space Nine. I gotta rewatch it. I'm working my way. I'm on Next Generation right now.
So Wesley Kushner on Twitter. Wes is a huge DS9 fan, and he and I have gone back and forth, and we really got into it. And I was like, all right, well, I got to go back and watch it. And I've watched the first 3 seasons this year, and it puts the lie to all of the socialism that, like, all of the like nice big fluffy red bow happiness of Next Generation and the original series. It puts DS9 goes back and puts the lie to all of that. Nice. To go like all of the politics and the backstabbing and all the crap that's going on Earth to make it the like socialist globalist utopia thing that it's supposed to be. DS9 exposes a lot of the like underbelly of like, oh, this is kind of what this looks like, because it's after Roddenberry has died.
Yeah.
And Rick Berman and those guys got, just brutalized for doing Voyager and DS9. And you actually look at DS9 and it's way better than any of the other stuff.
Yeah, I
because
heard
it's got like it's got the Ferengi and the Borg and the Klingons and the Romulans, and it's, hey, we're expanding into new territory, and so we've got the Founders and the Jem'Hadar and all these other people, and so you go, okay, here's your globalist like fluffy thing that Roddenberry thought was the greatest thing of all time, and go, well, what does that do when it's exposed to outside pressures? What does it do when it's exposed to societies that don't operate that way? And it's not pretty.
All right, guys, I'm going to have to probably call it quits soon just because, like, my back is killing me tonight. I can't sit up much longer. So I would like to, let's pick out one more movie to try to have, like, a 10-minute discussion on, and then we'll probably call it a night.
Captain America.
Yes.
Civil War.
Yep, there we go.
Let's talk Winter Soldier and Civil War together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Civil War,
my favorite thing after Civil War was there was a lot of leftist. I remember specifically one headline was Civil War turned Captain America into a libertarian douche.
Yep, that was Saloon, I think.
Yeah.
Or Salon,
and
or
I was
whatever.
Like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. It was like, how was like wanting people to be free making you a douche? Like, Jesus Christ, people.
Because the leftists think that if you have an all-powerful, all-knowing AI that will literally murder millions of people to make the rest of society safe, that's acceptable.
Yep.
The phrase is, for the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who uses that phrase can burn in a fiery pit.
So, are we ending the stream for the greater good?
We'll go on a little bit longer. I do want to talk about it a little bit more. Like one of the things, because like the comic book, there was what's her face, Sharon Carter delivers the line in Civil War, but it's a Captain America line. And the comic books, the whole like plant yourself by the river of truth and tell the world you move. In the comics, that's Captain America talking to Spider-Man. And like Spider-Man's conflicted because he's originally on Tony's side, and then he goes to Cap and he's like, basically like, sell me on your side because I don't like what, because like once Stark starts putting people in prison and like in a whole nother dimension and stuff, and you know, like
he murders Goliath.
And it's
616.
It's like, okay, that's not right. Like, you know, these people, just because they don't want to work for the government, you're going to tell them.
I don't get how, like, how does Iron Man go from, you know, flipping off the Senate hearing and saying, it's my property, you can't have it, I've privatized world peace, to Civil War, to signing off. And
I get it.
Some mom cries to him.
It's like his overall story arc of like, I do feel like the Ultron thing had a lot to do with it. Like I feel like his whole attitude of like, this is mine, you can't have it, government. He kind of felt like it was having consequences and he didn't like him. So like, I can see the story arc there. They did have to push it quite a bit to fit into that movie. But yeah.
So there's two pieces of that, right? The first is Tony Stark and the Starks in general are statist, warmongering arms dealers. That's the first piece. The second piece is, being a free marketeer has consequences. Welcome to the real world. Everything has consequences, and you don't get to socialize those consequences out across the government and across the population because you feel bad. Like, fuck off. Yeah, it has consequences, and you should be held liable. Oh, you got all those people in Sokovia killed? Guess what? Lawsuits, baby, and you get to pay. But because you don't want to pay and you don't want to lose your status as a billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, you get to, like, socialize everything and put all the other people with powers who didn't destroy an entire city and kill hundreds of thousands of people, they have to pay for that? Fuck you.
Yeah. And like, it brings up both movies bring up a lot of good stuff. Like Winter Soldier, the thing I liked about it was, it was a line of like, it's not freedom, you're putting a gun to everybody's head and calling it freedom or something like that, of like, you know, it's just like really like overbearing government kind of spy stuff of like, we're gonna like have this big these like drones in the sky that are gonna keep everybody in check, and I'm like, that's not far off from what the government wants to do.
We're going to observe all of your social media and internet presence, and we'll be able to tell before you absolutely are a threat. We're going to know that you're going to be a threat, and we're going to terminate you ahead of time.
Yep.
And there are several million targets on the planet already, and we're going to kill all of you.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the future leftist one.
Yeah.
Can I bring up another one real quick before the stream ends?
Yeah, go for it.
Another one that is very big for me, and is also a great book too, is A Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, go for it.
Now, I mean, the whole premise is Alex is a very immoral person, and he goes to prison, and the government comes and takes him and does experiments on him, and the whole plan is he's the guinea pig for what they want to do with all the prisoners, and that's just, instead of actually trying to make them reform and choose a life of good, they just want to make it so they're brainwashed to be good and follow the rules of society. And the whole moral of the story is, if you're forced to be good, are you really good?
And that's like the thing too, is by the end of the movie, I've never read the book, but like by the end of the movie, he's not changed. Like,
and in the book he changes. I kind of like how the movie leaves it open ended, because like, the book ended, like, I like the book for how it expanded into detail and other things. But I wasn't really a fan of the ending, because basically he just has a conversation. It's like, oh, I'm going to change my ways, and then he has a wife and kids and all that crap.
Yeah. Well, and that's like Stanley Kubrick too. Like he likes the open-ended stuff, or like you.
Kubrick really did a good job. Like, he made more of like a power structure, painting a power structure picture than Burgess did in the book.
Yeah, I would agree. And he does that with all of his movies. Really structuring things and kind of
Kubrick's the man.
I don't really remember where, like, I know there was a quote of his where he said something like, if you watch one of his movies and you get it on the first time, then he didn't feel like he did his job.
Well, I mean, they paid him to fake the moon landing, so.
Oh, God.
Hey, but he was such a perfectionist that he had to fake it on site.
Okay. Well, this was a lot of fun. I'd like to do another one of these sometime. And then I do want to say, Joe, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's been fun, guys.
Yeah, hope we can do another one in the future. I like doing this kind of laid back, just having fun, talking about movies and shit. So tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to have Ben. I'm going to have Ben on. If anybody else is able to join, they can. We're going to talk about the French riots. So try to tune in for that if you can.
Color Revolution in Paris, baby.
Right. So I want to get Ben's opinion on it because he's French. So I'm like, okay, well, he's there. He's going to have a better opinion.
You just assume?
He's not there, by the way. But he is from there. So
Yes, he's from there. So he has the accent and everything.
He's nice and safe, which is good. I'm happy. No. In all seriousness, he's safe across the English Channel, and I'm very happy that he's not in Paris.
Yes.
He's defending himself with his butter knife.
I think in the SNL chat on Facebook, he was like posting some links because people were asking about it, and he was like, "All right, I'm gonna go shoot some government agents now," or something like that. Ben's a good
Crazy
guy.
remake of Les Mis.
Yeah. All right. So keep posted on us on Twitter because I'm hoping to do a few more streams. I want to do one just talking about the VA, and then I'm trying to get a special guest on to talk about the opioid crisis. I have to go through some channels to get him on, but well, hopefully that'll work out. But and then Mike will be doing his Wednesday. Hopefully he'll be doing his Wednesday stream. His schedule's been busy, so if not, I might step in for him again. But we'll see. All right, so thanks for joining, everybody. And then, we'll see y'all next time. Good night.
Later.
They all like something's wrong with Josh's setup, and it's like it's dumping him off every time he tells it to not go live. It just dumps him. Oh, and Amos is stuck. All right, well, I guess I'm gone then.
What?
Oh, no, you're not stuck. There you go. You just pretended to
we're
be
still
stuck.
live.
Are we really?
Oh my God, no.
It says we're still live. It says it on my end. Are we really still live? Because every time Josh says go, he disappears. Does it still say live on your end?
We are still live.
Well, hi everybody. This is the after show. Amos and I are going to host for a little bit because apparently Josh's setup is like
he doesn't click stop broadcast. He just clicks hang up.
Is that what he's been doing? Is that why he keeps disappearing every time this thing ends?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Oh, God.
Well, hey, Josh, if you're watching this, because I'm guessing you're going to watch later, you should really figure out how to do this right. Just saying.
Know some tech.
So, okay, if we both go away, does it stop on its own if the call just ends?
Yeah.
So we need to go away and end this?
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out for the after show. See you later.